Ready? Okay. Hey guys, so today's video is going to be a Glitterature because I feel like I'm really kind of behind on my Glitteratures. Like I'm reading a lot more than I'm able to review on this channel. So today's going to be a review of Unwind and its sequel, Unwholly. So 2 books in this Glitterature, but they're, a sequel, so that kind of makes sense. So the first one is called Unwind, and I read this while I was at home for my sister's birthday, the trip that I did some videos on this channel. We went to Disney World and stuff like that. And I was reading this series and I loved this book so much that I had to pick up Unwholly immediately. And I always know that I really enjoy a book if I have to go buy the sequel pretty much like right away. Because a lot of times I'll be able to wait on a sequel, but if I really need to go out and buy it right away, it means that I really loved the first book. And I really, really did. So this book is going to sound a little bit weird, but I'm going to do my best to explain it. Basically, it's another dystopian themed book. I know, I've done so many dystopian reviews. I honestly think this is like the year of the dystopian books for me because I'm starting to get a little tired of them. I know I've done reviews on probably like 15 of them, but I'm still enjoying them, but I'm not seeking them out the same way that I was like a few books ago. I kind of feel like the plots are starting to be a little bit repetitive, but I still am really enjoying it. But this one, regardless, even if you feel like you've read too many dystopian books, this is one worth checking out. I loved this. In this book, there's a second civil war in our country called the Heartland Battle, or the Heartlands War, I think, and it's basically trying to come to a compromise between the pro-life and the pro-choice people in the United States. And the compromise that the country has come up with is that from the time of conception until the time that a child is 13 years old, its life cannot be touched. So you cannot abort it, you can't do anything to terminate the pregnancy. But after they turn 13, between the ages of 13 and 17, the parents can decide to unwind their child. And basically unwinding is taking 99.4%, that's accounting for like the appendix and pieces of your body that you would never, that you don't even need, so you wouldn't like reuse in other people, your wisdom teeth, your appendix, maybe your tonsils, but everything else gets divvied up and given to people that need it. So, people of car accidents and of wars and people that need different things, if they have cancer, if they need a new lung or a new heart. So basically you're not killing the child, because the child is living fully, this is the argument in the book, the child is living fully in a divided state. So they're still alive, you're not killing them, so it's not murder, but the child no longer exists because all of their parts are in other people's bodies. It's really creepy. It's supposed to be creepy. It's supposed to be a little weird. But what I liked so much about this story is that the author does a really, really good job making you as a reader understand why this makes sense. So even though you're not supposed to agree with the law, you're not supposed to, as a reader, think that unwinding is a good thing, the author still lets you understand why that decision was made. That way it makes sense to you, because if it didn't make sense to you at all, then it would be a really bad book. And the argument that the author uses for unwinding is basically that, for the most part, the kids that are going to be unwound are the kids that are going to end up in jail anyway. They're the kids that, drop out of school and steal stuff, and they're just the kids that end up in juvenile detention centers anyway. But there's always exceptions to the rule, and unfortunately in this book you become close to a character who is actually like a state child. Like she was an orphan, so she was basically a child of the state, and she is going to be unwound basically just because the state doesn't want to pay for her anymore. So that's really sad. So it definitely has issues both ways, and I think people that have really, really strong thoughts on abortion either way might get a little upset just reading this, even though it's totally fictional. I think that it kind of plays on an argument that is really something that a lot of people are passionate about, so that was a little bit of a risk that the author took, I think, using that as the plot of his story. But this book follows 3 people. The first one is just a bad kid, a kid on the wrong side of the tracks who is going to be unwound because his parents don't want to deal with him anymore. He, gets in fights at school and steals things, and I don't know, he's just a bad kid, so to speak. I mean, he's really not a bad kid. You get to know him and you actually like him. The second child is the one that is a child of the state, so she's going to be unwound just because the state doesn't want to pay for her, so you immediately feel terrible for her. And then the third kid is actually a a kid whose parents decided to basically give him up to God. For religious purposes, they donate, you know, 10% of everything, so why not donate one of their 10 kids to God as well, and to, you know, spread the good organs around to the needy because they give 10% of everything. So that's kind of interesting too, because they do have a little bit of this underlying religious discussion as well. So it's interesting that you get to follow all three kids' point of views, and obviously, you know, the story kind of winds together. That was not even intended to be a pun. Unwind, winding, get it? So the third kid was actually conceived to be unwound. The parents had him knowing he was going to be that 10th child, and from the time he was born, he knew he was going to be unwound at the age of 13, which is super, super sad. So that is what this first book is about. And in the second book, they follow the same characters, so those characters come back and are a huge part of the second book, but there are new characters in the second book as well, including one who, this is really interesting, I don't think this is a spoiler, but there is a character in this book who is the first man-made human. So he's the first human who was made completely of unwound parts, like 100% of parts from other people. And personally, that is like the creepiest thing I've ever heard of. So it's definitely like a little bit science fiction-y on top of a little bit dystopian and a little bit creepy, but something about this book like totally sucked me in. And I'm a reader, so it doesn't take much to suck me in, like, let's just be honest. But these books were very gripping, and I read through them very quickly. And I know there's going to be a third one, because at the bottom of the first one, or the bottom of the second one, it says book 2 in the Unwind trilogy. So there will at least be one more, which is really exciting. And as soon as that one comes out, I will do a review on that one as well, but I'm sure it will be really great, because after the first one, I was kind of wondering if the second one was going to still be good, or if it was kind of follow like the same pattern and kind of get old by the end of it. But it was totally different with that, with the guy that's made of all the different parts. He's a big storyline in it, and it's definitely something that makes you think, like, what if the world was like that? And what if there were people walking around that were made up 100% of other people's parts? Because it's pretty common, it's not super common, but a lot of people are walking around on this earth now that have at least someone else's part, you know, a donated kidney or lung or something. But imagine if someone was completely made up of other parts. And then you start wondering, like, well, does that person have a soul, or is that person everyone's souls from all the parts combined, and does that create its own soul? Or, you know, that a lot of that stuff is discussed in this book, and it definitely twists your mind a little bit, and you start to wonder, like, what do you believe in? You know, if humans can make other humans, then it just really like messes with your mind. So thankfully that's not actually something that I don't think that we would have the technology to ever do, but in the book it is, and it is a book, so we'll give it that. So that was my review on Unwind and Unwholly. If you have read them, leave your comments below telling me what you thought about these books, and I will talk to you later. Bye.
Let's break away from what we know. Just say the word, just say go.